disrupted.
America that I fought.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. It's been a fantastic day so far. So take a look at this for a second. This came to attention about RFK Jr.'s family because RFK Jr.'s family is distancing themselves away from RFK Jr. And they came out in support of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris for another 4 years. And this is RFK Jr.'s sister, Carrie Kennedy, announcing her support and her family's support for the Democrat nominee of Joe Biden for a re-election. It says RFK Jr.'s sister and family support Joe Biden on stage. She says Robert Kennedy and JFK would also support Biden. Contrary to possible belief, that's what she wants you to believe. That they would vote for a demented circus clown that's incapable of finishing sentences and incapable of really any sort of leadership to run for president. Instead of maybe a member of their family. Listen to this.
We want to make crystal clear our feeling that the best way forward for America is to re-elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to 4 more years. President Biden has been a champion for all the rights and freedoms that my father and uncles stood for. That's why nearly...
I'm sorry. Did JFK announce that he was doing censorship bans of newspapers? Did he attack journalists and charge them with espionage? What exactly would your uncle and your father be so proud of Joe Biden? I think even when they were running and Joe Biden was just entering politics, they would have thought, holy crap, this guy is an idiot. I know the Kennedys aren't, if you look at the history of the Kennedy family, they are something else. Like any political family dynasty, there's always going to be some interesting tales, some elaborate insanity, and it makes you shock and awe of just how many skeletons, how deep those closets are, how dark a lot of these family secrets are. And, even to RFK Jr., I do support, I would say, 80% of his stance, but there's a lot I critique him on. There's a lot of things that I criticize on. There's not going to be a perfect candidate, obviously, to vote for. But it just seems ridiculous. It just seems so ridiculous that the entire family is distancing themselves from RFK Jr., not even bothering to mention in this statement here. It almost seems like maybe, could be, that they were forced to do this. That somewhere down the line, in order for their careers to aspire, or maybe they got, intelligence agencies rallying on their tails saying, hey, you got to distance yourself away from that kook brother of yours, with this vaccine information and the fact that he has been true and true when it comes to corruption and the CIA and the deep state control of governance and foreign affairs. You got to stay away from that kook.
Every single grandchild of Joe and Rose Kennedy supports Joe Biden. That's right. That's right. The Kennedy family endorses Joe Biden for president. We want to make...
And you notice that this is probably the biggest endorsement. I mean, the Kennedy family, that's like royalty in the political world, is endorsing Joe Biden. Joe Biden's falling asleep. Like, you can't get a bigger endorsement than that. And he's just like falling asleep, like, oh, it's Betty Bye time. I took my apple juice and pills. Now I'm going to sleep. So this comes out with this Vanity Fair article that also got surfaced, and that's why I want to bring this to attention, because Vanity Fair put out this article saying RFK Jr.'s family doesn't want him to run. Even they may not know his darkest secrets. A shocking photograph, blowback from a Trump meeting, alleged sexual assaults. The Kennedys have voiced their support for Joe Biden, as you just saw there, but certain aspects of RFK Jr.'s character are only just coming to light. So this is how they're trying to attack him, because there is a chance that RFK Jr., being in an independent race, is getting some momentum away from the Democrat and the Republican establishment. A lot more people are more interested in RFK Jr.'s campaign than they are voting blue no matter who, or voting red no matter who. They're very, very interested in it, especially younger voters. They're more interested. A lot of people that, didn't vote in the past are even looking towards RFK Jr. They may not always agree with it. Like I said, you're not going to find a perfect candidate that's going to fit all the boxes, but they're looking down this path. They're looking down RFK Jr. and maybe looking at a viable option here. So now they got to do these hit pieces. And I'm assuming that when they mention about the photograph, which I'll explain later, has to do with the story about him on some excursion overseas where it looked like he was eating a barbecued dog. However, I could say, coming from a family of hunters, I'm not one, but I come from a family of hunters, I can tell you that is completely false. That is not a dog. That is not a pet, a domestic pet of whatsoever. It seems some sort of wild animal, possibly a goat. That's just my purview, but we'll get into that later on in this. So, this goes on to say, 20 years ago, RFK Jr. appeared in an HBO documentary about the dangers of a nuclear plant on the Hudson River. Indian Point, Imagining the Unimaginable, directed by his sister, Rory Kennedy, hits the crusading Kennedys pictured flying in a helicopter over the nuclear facility against Energy, the power company. The film argued that the surrounding environment would be made uninhabitable if the plant came under terrorist attack. This was necessary a high-stakes confirmation. In anticipation, Rory warned her production team that they had a potential liability. Her brother, though a prominent and successful environmental lawyer known for suing polluters, could be fast and loose with the facts. He could say some crazy shit, she told them, according to a person involved in the film. Kenny's interviews had to be thoroughly fact-checked, even though he might come across as an expert, she said. That's who he is. Sure enough, the film had already been edited when producers discovered that the Kennedys' interviews were littered with inflated and inaccurate claims, rendering portions of the film unusable. It was like, holy shit, says another source familiar with the events. We have to get the audio and cut certain things out. We can't really say this. You could be sued. The experience of having the tear in the film apart and re-edit was deeply frustrating for Rory, especially because HBO had wanted more Bobbity, not less. When her brother gave a speech at the film's premiere, vowed audience members asked Rory why she didn't include some of his more dramatic points in her film. She couldn't tell them because they were untrue. Long before he entered the 2024 race with a wagon train of conspiracy theories, love how they freaking throw that in there, the wider Kennedy family was intimately familiar with RFK Jr.'s problematic personality, the outsized confidence masquerading as expertise, the savior complex that drives him to take up cosmic cases and cast himself as a lone hero against the establishment powers, and all above, as one old friend calls it, his pathological need for attention. A few months ago, I began talking to Kennedy family members and close friends, some on the record, all others on background, to get insights into the man they know as well, and to ask some pointed questions. Rather than merely rubber stamping Joe Biden's already fatally flattering campaign, shouldn't you be telling voters that you know about your brother and cousin? those candidacy threatens to whose candidacy threatens to swing the presidential election to Donald Trump and upend American history forever. So this is Vanity Fair now trying to smear this. They're trying to smear this as, well, the Kennedy family should attack more of their brother. Shouldn't they bring more attention to this instead of actually highlighting, well, what exactly did he get wrong? Because you notice how in this article, they mentioned about how they had to re-edit the film and they had to highlight certain things and get rid of it, and HBO wanted more of Bobby Kennedy, obviously, in this film. They never mentioned exactly what scenes were untrue. They never mentioned any factoids or any points that RFK Jr. made that they had to re-edit it and fact-check. So it just seems like a she said, he said sort of situation. And more than likely, again, it just seems like this is some sort of career move for his sister and the rest of the family. Maybe the intelligence agencies got to them. I don't know what the case is, but it seems like deceiving your own family members, even personally you disagree with what they're saying, to do this kind of, pigeonholing, going around cookie cuttering around your brother, cutting him out of a film that he's an environmental lawyer, elaborating this case. It just seems so it seems so messed up. That's what I would say. With the future of the country riding on the narrowest of polling margins, shouldn't you be describing the fine detail, the acute dangers of the person you know so well, before your own family's tragedy becomes the nation's? To describe the family as reluctant in an understatement. Behind the scenes, his siblings, especially his brother Max, Chris, and Joseph II, are furious over his candidacy. Sisters Carrie and Rory are heartbroken, but the desire to preserve their relationship with their brother, combined with the long-standing Kennedy blood oath to protect the family reputation, has prevented them from pulling back the curtain on the RFK Jr. they know, instead choosing to focus on his policy differences. So now it seems like the reason that they're doing this is because if they fully do attack RFK Jr.'s persona, if they fully engage in weaponizing against their own brother, then that's going to reveal their darkest family secrets. And like I said, if you know a thing or two about the Kennedys, just like the Bushes, just like the Obamas, just like the Bidens and the Trump, any political dynasty, any rich billionaire dynasty within the corporate state or politics, there are going to be some deep, dark shadows. There's going to be some deep, dark skeletons buried within that closet. And more than likely, it's going to be a walk-in closet. So they don't want that to be revealed to the public because it's going to ruin the reputation of everyone thinking that, JFK was this inspiring hero. Which, again, they attack RFK Jr. for kind of the persona that their family was indoctrinated into. Their family, when JFK ran for president, he envisioned himself as being the lone savior, and that's why he went out and did those fabulous speeches and, I'm the only person that could save America from other people. That's the persona of all politicians. So it just seems like they're making up attacks instead of going to the truth, instead of actually going to fully accurately critique their brother, which you could open up and actually critique him on some of his policies. I doubt they're going to mention anything about his support for Israel's genocide. They're not going to mention about that, but they're going to cookie cutter themselves to make these claims and try to swindle around this so that they won't get exposed themselves. That's just what it seems like to me. So this guy, Sam Husseini, who's a reporter, he does a lot of the State Department meetings. He says, as I wrote even before RFK Jr. announced, I'm seriously concerned about his foreign policy stance and the potential for him to sheepdog people into backing Biden. So That's what I felt like when he was running as a Democrat. Like, the party is screwing you, bud. They're purposely manipulating you and screwing you. And the fact that you're so appended to running in this party, running in the Democratic Party, makes me believe that you're not serious about a candidacy. You're not serious about being president. And you're just doing this to sheepdog people into the Biden administration. Just like how Bernie Sanders did. Just like how AOC did. Like the rest of the squad. And that could have been called out for. But they're not going to call him out on that. But why exactly smear him about a group run by his sister who is opposed to his presidential run? So, Gary Kennedy, who just saw earlier endorsing Joe Biden, is the president of RFK Jr.'s human rights organization. So, there seems to be some tells exactly why the Kennedy family, especially the ones that are in these lucrative NGO or governmental jobs, are so reluctant on not supporting RFK Jr., a member of their own family, but will definitely go onto the side of Joe Biden. Will definitely dig themselves into catastrophe in support of the establishment nominee, the deep state pick. And as Michael Tracy points out, that human rights organization, RFK Sr.'s human rights organization, that his sister is the head of that organization, the 2022 recipients. So this is the human rights organization. This is what they consider human rights recipients. Take a look at this. 2022 recipients of the RFK Ripple of Hope Award include Brian Moynihan, CEO of Bank of America, Prince Harry and Meghan, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and Volodymyr Zelensky, the President of Ukraine. Proceedings were emceed by Alec Baldwin. So, this human rights organization, in honor of RFK Sr., is this kind of deep state initiative. Because, of course, why, they're going to pick people that side with the official narrative and not people that are actually monumentous on peace or hope or any tranquility to humanity. That's why they'll go for someone like Volodymyr Zelensky, but they're not going to give a human rights award to Julian Assange. They're not going to give a human rights award to Edward Snowden for reminding us that the United States empire, the NSA, the CIA, the FBI, have been mass surveilling us, exposing the criminality within the intelligence agencies. They're not going to give anything to that. But they'll give to Volodymyr Zelensky, who was handpicked in 2014 by a U.S. coup to be their puppet to do outrageous warfare, not against not only Russians, but their own citizens. That's the Human Rights Award given to this guy. Which goes to show you that awards are just meaningless. I mean, they gave a peace prize to Barack Obama, who dropped more bombs than any president in the last 20 years. They ran out of bombs under Barack Obama's administration. They tortured people. And they gave him a peace prize. And you know what the funny part about that? They don't get a second one. They don't try to get a second one. They just give him a peace prize, tell him how great and amazing they are, and just walk away. Walk back into the darkness. Walk back into your evil complex. So, of course, they're going to side with a genocidal, demented maniac like Joe Biden. It makes perfect sense to this. So, in regards to RFK Jr., though, responding to this article, here he is with Sagar and Jetty, Breaking Points, you know, the lovely make-believe independent show that's really just a front for the establishment. Because, you know, guys, it's a very good show, guys, as Crystal Ball would say. And here's Sagar talking to RFK Jr. about that article, about the sexual assault, and about the photograph. And RFK Jr., again, this is where I critique him. Like I said, I agree with him about 80% of his campaign promises. And, you know, I put him on a bit of a more higher reach than obviously Joe Biden and even Donald Trump to some degree. But this is where I think he falls short. So listen to his response to this.
Vanity Fair came out with a major profile today. I want to give you a chance to respond to this. There's a photo circulating, I believe, of you posing with what looks like a dog, and also a barbecued dog. I'm not going to show the picture as a dog lover. I know you have pets yourself, and also a sexual assault allegation from one of your former nannies. So I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
Yeah. Sorry. The article is a lot of garbage. The picture that they said is of me eating a dog. It's actually me eating a goat in Patagonia on a whitewater trip many years ago on the Fuleifu River.
So I was kind of right on that. Unfortunately, I can't really show the picture to you guys because obviously YouTube's going to have a heyday with that. Like I said, I come from a background of family members who are hunters, and I've seen pictures in the day and really just not wanting to see those pictures, but I did. I was certain that was fabricating, that was false. Just like how they were trying to smear this in the direction, not really highlighting or not really accurately accusing him of anything, but they're just trying to say like how dangerous this guy is and how we had to take him out of context when it came to a documentary 20 years ago done up by his sister, and how the Kennedy family kind of sidestepped away from him. But this is where it gets interesting, because putting the dog thing alone, putting that aside, because that's not really the important part of the story. The important part is this sexual assault allegation that they're now bringing to attention. This is where RFK Jr. fell short.
They say there's an expert. They have an expert that has identified that as a dog carcass.
Yeah,
it's just not true. So, and in terms of the other allegations, I've said this from the beginning. I am not a church boy. I am not running like that. I said I had a very, very rambunctious youth. I said in my announcement speech that I have so many skeletons in my closet that if they could all vote, I could run for king of the world. Mm-hmm. So, this Vanity Fair is recycling 30-year-old stories, and I'm not, going to comment on the details of any of them, but.
So, this is where I'm conflicted. Because when he goes into responding to the sexual assault allegations done by his nanny, I do believe, he's not really denying it. He's not really holding down saying like, no, this did not happen. Like, I'm conflicted on this because he's making it sound like, yes, I'm not a church boy. I have skeletons. I have, problematic history. There's things that could be exposed in hindsight of that, which, okay, fair point. Again, there's not going to be a perfect person out there that's not going to check all the boxes. Everybody has some, baggage and dirt on them. I'm sure, you dig up stories on anybody, there's going to be something that could be, deemed embarrassing or whatever. But you're not really speaking in response to directly the claims that are being held against you. You're not really speaking directly to the sexual assault allegation. You're more just kind of generalizing the fact that, well, you know, we all have history. We all have baggage. We all have, you know, I'm not a church boy. And speaking on behalf of someone that's also not really a church boy, I haven't attended a church in, God, freaking 20 years now. Since my days of being kind of kicked out of Sunday school, and that's another story. What does that have to do with the fact that you are being accused of sexual assault? Again, that doesn't have to, that doesn't matter in that situation. That doesn't matter in the situation. What Sagar's saying is that there is allegation, direct allegation of you being involved in sexual assault. What is your response to that? And he's kind of like tiptoeing, just generalizing it, because he doesn't want to comment on it. So it just seems crazy that you would not directly respond to it. You would not directly say, no, I did not assault anyone, or no, this is just a fake story. How you're kind of tiptoeing this. So it's almost, you're kind of making it believe like maybe something did happen. If someone was to look at this and not really dive into it, if someone just, you know, an average viewer of Breaking Points looked into this and then go like, oh, maybe he did do some sexual activity towards the nanny. Like, I don't know what to make of this.
I am who I am.
You're talking there about the nanny situation. I mean, I do have to ask her. I mean, are you denying it or not?
I'm not going to comment on it.
All right. Well, I gave you the opportunity, and officially, it's a goat. I didn't know necessarily about what.
So, I feel a bit disappointed in the fact that they spent that time more focused on the photograph, which anyone can go look at, and they can look at and clearly see that it's not actually a dog. And, you know, I can confirm that. RFK Jr. can confirm that. They even got some sort of, you know, researcher or some sort of biologist, it sounded like, to confirm that. You know, yes, he goes on, you know, different trips around the world. He's experienced a lot of different things. And yes, they eat wild animals. As someone that comes from a family of hunters, yes, you know, it definitely looked more like a goat than it did a dog. But that's not the important part of the story. The important part of the story is that RFK Jr. has a Me Too movement against him. And there's no real retaliation. There's no comment to this. He's not denying it. He's just no comment and trying to tiptoe around it. Like, it seems so crazy. It seems so crazy. And this is why, you know, you can't put your foot down on RFK Jr. and say that he is the perfect person. And why I don't take him as serious as maybe other people are when it comes to this, because this is stuff that he tiptoes around. Same with, you know, the Israeli genocide. You know, how many times did he had the opportunity to discuss this with, you know, Max Blumenthal or Aaron Mate or Jimmy Dore, to really highlight the fact that you are supportive of this kind of operation done by a Zionist cult, done by Netanyahu, a known war criminal, done by the Mossad agency tied with the CIA, and how this is kind of manufactured to, again, put us in a state of war against terror days that RFK Jr. should know better, because he used to call that out. And this is something that I would harshly critique him on this. But he cowers away, he tiptoes, and I don't know, maybe he's just being blackmailed by the Mossad. Maybe there's some sort of incriminating documents. Maybe, you know, he did take those trips with Jeffrey Epstein. Maybe something like that. I don't know. But this just it just seems like a no-brainer. It just seems like a no-brainer to just come forward and say, like, no, that was just garbage. That I didn't sexually assault anybody. That was just a make-believe story. Even if it was false, even if they did a whole investigation to prove that what RFK Jr. said in that moment is completely false, at least say that now, rather than just going so vague and so generalized that people are going to assume that probably there was some sort of sexual assault between RFK Jr. and this nanny, and maybe in hindsight of all this, RFK Jr. doesn't want to reveal that because he knows that the Kennedy family has a dark history. So I don't know. This whole thing just is very fascinating in the fact that RFK Jr. seems to be tiptoeing around certain elements and certain stories and certain accusations that you would think he'd be more forward about. But they're just more focused on this dog, which we've already proven how many times. It's a goat. It's a wild goat. RFK Jr. known to, make extravagant trips with different people, does crazy stuff like that. But why he wouldn't, just come forward with this sexual assault, I don't know. I don't know how his mind works, but that just seems like another case of RFK Jr. falling flat on his face and just not taking this seriously enough.